for loop that would multiply or square numbers from 1 to 11. And now we're going to look at some simple statistics with lists. So just make this stats.py. And we're going to start by making a list called digits. This will just be the numbers that we're going to put in our list. And we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. So whenever you use digits as your numbers, you can actually have a few functions that will go ahead and do the just some simple statistics about that. So let's say we want to find the minimum number in this list. So we would type min for minimum and then digits, and then we can print min. We want to print min digits, so we're going to go ahead and do this, and this will print the minimum of these digits. So if we hit this, we get, if we make it run, 0 is our smallest number, so it's posted as the minimum. So let's say you want to get the maximum of these digits, so you do the same thing, max digits, and now we get the maximum. And then finally, let's say you want to add all the numbers together. If you type sum and then digits, it'll get the summation of all the numbers, and you'll get 45. So if we continue on, there's some more things we can do on this. Let's say we want to get the squares like we did before, but we're going to do it all in basically one line. So we'll do value, which is the variable we're going to use, the exponent, for, and we'll do value, which is the new, basically this is where we're going to set this value for this variable value. For value in the set of this range between 1 to 11 like we did before, and then if we print squares, you can see down here it's going to print the squares for the value for each one of these digits. So it's going to go 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, all the way up to 10 squared, which is 100. So there are a lot of different things you can do with this. So we're going to do one of the exercises that's in the book. Definitely recommend getting the book because I'm only going to cover a couple of the exercises. So we're going to count to 20. So if you look back here, we can get an idea of what we're going to do. So we're going to do 4 and then a number. So for number, or you can call it count, in this range that we're going to create. If you look at here, we'll do range 1 to 6, but we're going to count to 20. So we're going to start at 1, and if you remember, whenever you do ranges, the last number isn't used. So to actually count to 20, you have to put 21 because it'll stop at 20 if you put 20. So if we do this, we did it incorrectly, obviously, because it only printed out 1 and 21. Let's see here. So I'm just go back here. List range 1 to 6. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we're actually it's gonna print this number. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 to 21. Oh, I forgot to put range. So right now, sorry about that. I was wondering why it wasn't working. So whenever I typed it, it just had the numbers. It just looked at these two numbers, 1 and 21 individually. But if you put a range here, it's going to look at and count every single one of them. So it's going to create this count for every single time we find a number between 1 and 21. It's going to print that number. So if you look here, it prints all the way out to 21. And another one of the steps, or one of the lessons, it asks you to sum to 1,000,000. We're not going to do that because it takes your computer quite a while to sit and print everything. It can count it all really quickly, but sitting and physically printing each and every number just takes a minute. So I'm not going to do that, but we are going to count by 3. So for count in range, let's say we're going to go to 30 this time. So 3 to 31. But then if you put another number at the end, this tells you how many numbers to increment. And we need our colon here, so print count. If you see here, we print the numbers. Oh, let's go ahead and get rid of this top one so we can just look at just this section of code. So now we got 3, 6, 9, 12. It basically counts by 3 all the way to 30. And we're going to do the same thing for cubes. So if you look at our previous one for squares, we had a squares list called squares, and this one we're going to call cubes equals, and we're going to make a blank list. And if you come back to here, you can see that we're going to make a value in this range. So we're going to make cubes 1 through 0. So we'll just do 1 to 10 for value in range 1 to 11, because remember it doesn't count the last one, so we have to do 1 to 10 to be 1 to 11. And if we look here, we're going to do, instead of putting square here, we're going to put cube. So we're going to cube, I believe it's value exponent 3, and then cubes dot append, and we're going to tell it what to append here. So you'll put in here, we're going to be using cube as our variable instead of square, so inside of here is what you're going to append to that list. So we're going to put cube here. And then if we go down, if we put, for example, this print squares, if we were to put it here, print cube, it's going to give us a problem. It's going to list it out a bunch of different times. We only want it to print once. So we need it outside of our for loop. So if we delete and put a space, just for our convenience, easier to read, and put cubes, we get our cube of 1 cube, 2 cube, 3 cube, 4 cube, 5 cube, and it goes all the way up to 10 cubed. Alright, so let's say we've got this list now. We'll make a new list, and we'll call this one, this one says players, so players in a game. We're going to make a list of players equals, let's say we've got Zach, Ryan, Sean, these are just people I play video games with, Nate. Let's say we got these 4 people on our players. So let's say you don't want to print out everybody, but you only want to print out a section of them. So you would put print, and then in parentheses you would put the list that you want to print, and then in this in these brackets is where you would want to start and finish. So let's say we want to just print my name, so we print 0, so we get Zach. But let's say we want to print between 0 and 1, so we want to print my name and Ryan's name. Oh, so it's puts what number you start and finish at, so it does the same thing. So 0 and 2, so it prints 0 and then it prints 1. And then it stops at 2 and doesn't do anything. But if we want to do all of them, we would put 0 to 4, and we would get everyone's name, because it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, and there's no 4, but we want it to stop at 4. So that way we can print 0 to 4. But you can also modify this to where you're not, let's say you don't want to print my name and you don't want to print the last name, you just want to print these middle 2. Oh, sorry. So you get 0, it's going to print 1, and it's going to print 2, and it's going to stop at 3. So that's how you would get it to print just a section of that. But you can also do this to where, instead of, if you want to print everything, if you put nothing at the beginning and you run the program, it'll run everything up to number 3. So 0, 1, 2, it won't print an 8. And you can do the same thing where if we do it this way, it prints Ryan, Sean, Nate, but it doesn't print 0, which is Zach. So it only prints 1, 2, and 3, and it prints everything up to the bottom of that list. So that's how you can work with individual components of a list, and basically they're called slices. So if you wanted to work with just a section of players, so let's say we wanted to print out our first 3 players. Here are the first 3 players. And then we could do for player inside of players, which is our list, and we can tell it which ones we're going to print. So we're going to print from the beginning to number 3, 0, 1, 2, and then 3 it's not going to print. We can say for player and players, print player. So it puts our first 3 players here, Zach, Ryan, Sean. And that's how you can modify and go through lists, and those are called slices whenever you're working through just individual parts of a list. This is a slice of a list that prints out the first 3 parts of that slice. So now we're going to talk about you can copy lists. So let's say players are also, I use this term loosely, friends. So let's say we do friends equals players, and then we put the 2 brackets. If you want the entire list saved in here, you can put this little colon here. And then when we print friends, it prints out, it just copies the list over to here. And the reason you want to do this is if you're going to, let's say you have usernames and you want to keep the usernames static, like let's say all these names are capitalized, but you wanted to do a comparison. So what you would do is you would have all the names capitalized. So you'd have friends equals players, and then you could actually modify it to where friends equals players dot lower. Let's see. List has no attribute lower, so we'll have to go through it because there's a way. So this is just so you can modify the list without affecting the actual normal list. So whenever we print friends, let's say we wanted to add people to our friends, so you could do friends.append. And then inside this append, you could put additional friends that might not necessarily be people that play video games. So put Caleb, that's my brother. And now if we go to print friends, we add someone that's in players, someone to play video games with, and then just friends straight up. So sometimes people could be in one list but not the other, but you want to just add them to an additional list without modifying that previous list. And that's how you can modify just different types of lists by copying them. I'm trying to see what else we can do with these chapters. So let's say we wanted to print out everybody's name for friend in friends. You can print friend dot lower. So this would lowercase everybody's name. So now you can see in the original list we've got Zach, Ryan, Sean, Nate, but now whenever we whenever we've appended Caleb to the friends list, and then we print out friend.lower, it lowercases everyone's name. So this is how people can have usernames and things like that that are stored with uppercase and lowercase. Let's say, if we wanted to, all of our usernames are probably different from our regular names in video games. So if my name was like just Zach, for example, with capital J, capital Z, if we use a secondary list to lowercase all of them and then compare them to new entries by lowercasing all of those new entries, it'll verify that there are no usernames that are using the same name but with different capitalization. It makes sure that everyone's username is unique, and different ways we can do that. So now we're going to talk about tuples. So tuples are defined by, they're pretty similar to lists. So let's say we've got dimensions of board or something like that. But instead of like list, they use a parentheses, so 250. So if you print, you still call them like you would regular regular lists, but these are known as tuples. And the only difference is that tuples cannot be reassigned. So whenever, let's say, I want to do dimensions 0 equals 300, if you run that, it does not support reassignment. So these are for an immutable lists that you do not want to change ever. And this just prevents anything from changing. So 200 will always be set as 0 in this tuple, and there's no way to change it. I can't come in here and put 300. So this will be used for different things, like things that you do not want to change ever. The only way you can actually change them is by changing the entire list. So you can see this doesn't work, right? But let's say we put dimensions equals, and we put in the parentheses 300 and 200, and then we print dimensions. You can see here that whenever you go in and you overwrite the list or overwrite the tuple using the function where you're just redefining the entire tuple, that's the only way you can modify the list. You can't go and individually modify a single unit. You have to modify the entire thing. And this wants us to make a restaurant menu, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll call it menu.py, and we're going to name it menu, and our menu is going to consist of pizza, spaghetti, wings, and we'll do pie. So it wants us to print out every single one of these items. So for food in menu, print food. So for every single item inside of this list, inside this tuple, we're going to print it out. Now it wants us to modify that menu to have some things change. So let's say we no longer serve spaghetti. So we do pizza, wings, pie. So we've ran out of spaghetti. People keep ordering it. So whenever for food and menu now, whenever we go to print it, you can see in the first, we'll go ahead and do a new line here so you guys can, actually we'll format this. We'll make this a little bit cleaner. Instead of just putting food and just printing it out, we'll go ahead and format this. So here is our menu. Put food. Or let's say today are so if we do this, it puts every single loop it basically puts all of our food in this list here. It basically says, hey, our specials today are this, and we're using the format function to replace these curly brackets with food. So our special today are pizza, our specials today are spaghetti, our specials today are wings, and our specials today are pie. And we can do the same thing here. We can put You can format again. We are out of spaghetti. Here are our remaining items. So this isn't the cleanest code because it's going to keep making that line of we are out of spaghetti, here are, it's going to keep saying the same thing over and over, but this is just to prove that you can use the format function with this food variable. So our specials today are, and then we removed spaghetti, and now we've got pizza, wings, and pie. All right, that's pretty much it for this chapter. The next chapter covers if statements. The last few things that this chapter goes over are line length and indentation, which we already talked about before. If you go to view and go to indentation, we want to indent using spaces. And you want those spaces set to 4. So whenever you hit tab, it will move 4 spaces. And then finally, we want our ruler set to 80. And it puts this line here because that's the line. That's the standard that you want for code. You don't want it to go any longer than that. So this one is kind of just a quick wrap up. I didn't go into too many details about how to go in depth and change things throughout the tuple and things like that. I just showed you the basics of them. This one, there are a couple more exercises in the book, but I just recommend that you get more experience because me sitting and going through every single lesson isn't really going to help you. I really recommend just downloading Sublime and getting in there and getting this book and basically getting some keyboard experience and typing things out yourself, and that'll help you as we go further into the book because by around page 300, we're on page about 75 right now. We should have a game created, and that's gonna basically get you. I think it's just a better way to get people involved is creating games and actually creating applications. So you're not just printing out in this little text menu where it's not really doing anything for you. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.